05:30 hours. Gulf of Aden. The radio crackled with panic. A U.S. flagged cargo ship had just spotted several small boats speeding toward it. Within minutes, they surrounded the vessel, engines roaring, armed men shouting through loudspeakers. The crew locked themselves inside the ship's citadel, praying help would come before the pirates breached the deck. But what the attackers didn't know was that someone was already watching them from above. Because high in the sky, a U.S. Navy patrol aircraft had its eyes locked on every move. Stay until the end to hear how American forces answered this attack. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss a mission like this. The Gulf of Aden is one of the busiest shipping routes on Earth. Every year, more than 20,000 ships pass through it, carrying everything from oil and food to military supplies. But it's also one of the most dangerous. It sits between Yemen to the north and Somalia to the south, a narrow stretch of water that connects the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea. For decades, this region has been a hunting ground for modern-day pirates. These pirates are not from old legends or movies. They are real men, poor, desperate, and armed with automatic rifles and rocket launchers. Most operate from the Somali coast using small, fast boats called skiffs. They move in groups, often supported by larger motherships that can carry extra fuel and weapons. Their goal is simple: capture ships, take the crew hostage, and demand ransom. In the early 2000s, piracy in this region exploded. At its peak, between 2008 and 2011, pirates hijacked hundreds of vessels. In 1 year alone, they earned an estimated $150 million in ransom money. That made the Gulf of Aden one of the most watched areas on the planet. NATO, the European Union, and the U.S. Navy all launched operations to protect the sea lanes. The U.S. Navy's role was critical. Its mission, to ensure freedom of navigation, the right for every ship to travel safely through international waters. The Navy didn't just defend warships, it protected civilian and commercial vessels too. The United States had invested in advanced surveillance systems, aircraft, drones, and satellites that could spot threats long before they reached their targets. On this morning, a U.S. Navy-flagged cargo ship named MV Liberty Dawn was traveling north toward the Suez Canal. The ship carried food and construction supplies, crewed by 20 civilian sailors. They had no heavy weapons, only basic defensive gear. The Gulf was calm, the weather clear, and the ship moved at steady speed. At 05 hours, the crew noticed something on the horizon: faint lights, small and moving fast. Through binoculars, they saw them clearly: small boats, 4 of them, closing in. At first, they hoped it was a fishing group, but these boats were different. No nets, no flags, just men with rifles. The captain ordered the crew to increase speed and send a distress signal. In less than a minute, the emergency beacon reached the U.S. Navy's Regional Operations Center. The signal was automatically relayed to a nearby patrol aircraft, a P-8A Poseidon, already on a surveillance mission 25,000 feet above the Gulf. The Poseidon's crew spotted the scene instantly. Their sensors could track moving objects miles away. They zoomed in and confirmed it. The boats were armed, moving in a pack, heading straight for the Liberty Dawn. The Navy now had eyes on the pirates. Down below, the cargo ship's crew prepared for the worst. The captain ordered all hands to lock themselves in the citadel, a reinforced safe room deep inside the ship, designed for this exact situation. The crew secured communication equipment, turned off lights, and sealed doors. The pirates were now less than a mile away. Meanwhile, the P-8A Poseidon sent a coded message to the USS Bainbridge, a U.S. Navy destroyer operating less than 60 nautical miles away. The Bainbridge immediately changed course, increasing speed. On board, sailors ran to their stations. Helicopter crews began pre-flight checks. Weapons were readied, and the ship's radar locked onto the coordinates of the attack. Back in the sky, the Poseidon circled high above, watching the pirates approach the cargo ship. The small boats surrounded the vessel from 3 sides, trying to block its path. Pirates fired warning shots into the air, demanding the crew to stop. They had no idea that every move they made was being tracked by the U.S. military in real time. At 0530 hours, the situation turned critical. The pirates pulled up alongside the cargo ship and tried to climb aboard using ladders and ropes. The Poseidon crew watched as one of the attackers fired at the bridge windows. They radioed the Bainbridge. Hostile boarding attempt confirmed. Within minutes, the U.S. Navy destroyer was closing in. The sky above the Gulf was no longer empty. Something powerful and armed was coming their way. The pirates didn't know it yet, but their fight was already over. At 0545 hours, the Gulf of Aden erupted into chaos. The pirates had reached the side of the MV Liberty Dawn. They shouted commands in Somali and Arabic, waving rifles as they tried to throw grappling hooks onto the deck. The ship's crew, locked in their citadel, could hear the thud of boots and metal above them. The bridge windows were shattered by gunfire. The attackers believed they were minutes away from taking control, but far above, the U.S. Navy's P-8A Poseidon had already marked their coordinates. Every second, its advanced radar and electro-optical sensors tracked the pirate boats. The Poseidon S crew had one goal: hold the pirates in place long enough for help to arrive. At 0552 hours, the aircraft radioed, "Multiple hostiles aboard merchant vessel, engaging in real-time monitoring, U.S. warship en route." The USS Bainbridge, a guided missile destroyer, was now only 40 miles away, closing fast. Its engines roared through the dark water at more than 30 knots. The Poseidon deployed a sonobuoy marker, a small floating sensor, to monitor surface movement and mark the target zone for the incoming Navy units. This was not just a rescue mission. It was a test of coordination between air and sea, the type of rapid response the U.S. Navy trains for every single day. Back on the cargo ship, the pirates had started searching the deck, looking for ways to reach the bridge or engine room. They shouted orders to each other, unaware that their every step was being transmitted to a destroyer armed with Tomahawk missiles and MH-60R Seahawk helicopters. At 06 hours, a distant rumble rolled across the sea. The pirates didn't notice it at first, but the Poseidon AS crew could see it clearly on their screens, two small radar blips approaching at high speed. These were the Seahawks, launched from the USS Bainbridge. Each helicopter carried a small team of Navy special operators, trained for visit, board, search, and seizure, VBSS, missions. The helicopters arrived at the scene within minutes. They flew low, just above the waves, radar signatures minimized. As they neared the cargo ship, the pilots activated powerful searchlights that cut through the morning haze. Suddenly, the pirates froze. They looked up, realizing they were being watched and hunted. A booming voice thundered from the helicopter's external speaker. "This is the United States Navy. Drop your weapons immediately. You are surrounded." Panic spread across the small boats. Some pirates tried to flee, throttling their engines toward open water. But escape was impossible. The Poseidon tracked them from above, relaying coordinates to the destroyer, which was now visible on the horizon. The USS Bainbridge launched a fast assault craft, a high-speed, rigid-hull boat carrying a U.S. Navy security team. At 0615 hours, warning shots splashed into the water near the pirates' boats. Within seconds, one of the helicopters fired a flare barrage, lighting the sky with bright trails. The pirates stopped. They raised their hands. Several dropped their weapons into the sea. The Bainbridge's assault boat closed in, surrounding them. Meanwhile, a second team of Navy operators rappelled down onto the deck of the Liberty Dawn. They moved fast, clearing compartments one by one, ensuring the pirates hadn't reached the crew. When they finally reached the citadel, they knocked twice, the signal for safety. Inside, the terrified crew opened the door. They were shaken, but alive. By 0640 hours, it was over. All 12 pirates were captured. Their skiffs were towed back to the Bainbridge for evidence processing. The U.S. Navy had retaken the ship without firing a single lethal shot. news of the operation reached command centers within minutes. In Washington, the Pentagon confirmed the event. U.S. Navy personnel responded to a piracy attempt against a U.S.-flagged merchant vessel in the Gulf of Aden. No casualties reported, hostile forces detained. But the full story of what really happened that morning was only beginning to unfold. The pirates thought they were attacking an easy target. They didn't know that above them, advanced American technology had turned the entire sea into a battlefield they couldn't win. What looked like a handful of small boats versus a cargo ship had in reality become a showdown between 21st century naval power and 20th century desperation. To understand what truly happened that morning, we have to look at the technology and strategy that made it possible. The Gulf of Aden has always been a challenge for maritime defense. It stretches nearly 900 kilometers between the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa, a vast area of open water that's impossible to patrol completely by ships alone. That's where the U.S. Navy's surveillance network comes in. The first key player was the P-8A Poseidon, a multi-mission maritime patrol aircraft built by Boeing. The Poseidon is the Navy's eyes and ears over the ocean. It flies at 25,000 feet and can cover more than 1,200 nautical miles without refueling. Its radar can spot small boats, even wooden ones, from over 100 miles away. It carries advanced imaging sensors, infrared cameras, and sonar systems that can track movement on both the surface and underwater. The Poseidon also acts as a command relay. When the MV Liberty Dawn sent its distress signal, the P-8A received it instantly. Its onboard mission systems analyzed the data, location, heading, and threat direction, and sent it directly to the USS Bainbridge using encrypted digital communication. This process, called Link 16, allows ships, aircraft, and even drones to share real-time battle information instantly. The second key player, the USS Bainbridge, DDG-96, is an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. It's one of the most capable warships on Earth. Equipped with the Aegis combat system, the Bainbridge can track and engage multiple threats at once: aircraft, missiles, and small surface vessels. Its radar system, the AN/SPY-1D, scans hundreds of miles in every direction. On board the Bainbridge are Tomahawk cruise missiles, Sea Sparrow surface-to-air missiles, and Phalanx CIWS close-in weapon systems that can shoot down incoming threats at close range. But in this case, it wasn't about heavy firepower. It was about precision and control. The destroyer needed to arrive fast and de-escalate before lives were lost. To do that, the Bainbridge relied on its MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, the Navy's multi-role aircraft for reconnaissance, search and rescue, and attack. Each Seahawk is equipped with radar, electro-optical sensors, and machine guns. It can carry sonobuoys for submarine detection or lightweight Hellfire missiles if needed. But during this mission, the Seahawks carried VBSS teams, elite Navy operators trained to retake ships and handle high-risk maritime situations. VBSS stands for Visit, Board, Search, and Seizure. And these teams are part of the Navy's surface warfare community. They train to board ships quickly, secure decks, and arrest hostile forces. Many of these sailors are cross-trained with Navy SEALs and Coast Guard boarding units. Their job is dangerous: fast rope insertion from helicopters, clearing narrow hallways, and handling unpredictable enemies who might panic or fight back. While the helicopters engaged visually, the Bainbridge itself operated as the command node. The captain used real-time video from the Poseidon's sensors, helicopter feeds, and radar to coordinate every move. In modern naval warfare, this kind of network-centric command is key. It allows a warship to manage multiple assets across air and sea, even before it's in visual range. Meanwhile, the citadel aboard the cargo ship, the safe room where the crew hid, was also part of the Navy's broader security strategy. After several hijackings in the early 2000s, the U.S. Maritime Administration required all U.S.-flagged ships in high-risk areas to build fortified spaces. These rooms have independent power, communications, and oxygen supplies, allowing crews to stay safe and maintain contact with rescuers. That's exactly what saved the Liberty Dawn's crew. The entire operation lasted less than 2 hours, but behind that quick response were years of investment and coordination. The U.S. Navy's Combined Task Force 151, established in 2009, oversees counter-piracy operations across the region. It includes ships from more than 20 nations, all working together to keep vital trade routes open. By the time the Bainbridge and its teams reached the Liberty Dawn, the pirates had no idea they were being surrounded by some of the most advanced systems ever deployed at sea. Their small, fast boats, once symbols of fear, were no match for satellites, radar networks, encrypted comms, and trained operators who had rehearsed this exact scenario hundreds of times. This was the modern U.S. Navy in action, invisible until the moment it strikes, precise when it does, and unstoppable when it's provoked. By 07 hours, the sun had fully risen over the Gulf of Aden. The sea, which had been alive with chaos only minutes earlier, was now calm again. The U.S. Navy had neutralized the pirate threat without firing a single fatal shot. The USS Bainbridge's boarding teams had secured the cargo ship, disarmed the attackers, and ensured every crew member of the MV Liberty Dawn was accounted for and unharmed. The captured pirates, 12 in total, were brought aboard the Bainbridge for interrogation and medical checks. They were exhausted, shocked, and silent. Most were young, some barely in their 20s. They had left the Somali coast days earlier, armed with old rifles and false confidence. What they didn't understand was that they hadn't just attacked a cargo ship. They had attacked under the watch of the most powerful navy on Earth. The Bainbridge's captain sent a short report back to headquarters. Hostile forces detained, no U.S. casualties, mission successful. The message was simple, but its meaning was huge. This operation was a textbook example of modern naval response, fast, coordinated, and precise. Within 2 hours of the distress call, the U.S. Navy had detected, intercepted, and neutralized an attack without loss of life. Word of the incident quickly spread through the region. Merchant captains traveling through the Gulf of Aden began transmitting messages of thanks and relief. They knew that as long as U.S. and coalition ships patrolled the waters, piracy would never again reach the levels it had a decade earlier. At the same time, U.S. intelligence analysts began tracing the captured pirates' origins. The investigation revealed that they were part of a small, recently formed group trying to rebuild the old Somali pirate networks. They had hoped to capture an unarmed vessel and ransom it for quick profit. But the Navy's constant surveillance, using Poseidon's drones and satellites, meant such attempts were doomed from the start. The 12 captured men were later transferred to a regional court for trial under international maritime law. Their boats and weapons were destroyed at sea. The MV Liberty Dawn, after minor repairs, continued its journey toward the Suez Canal under U.S. Navy escort. In Washington, the Pentagon issued a brief statement. The United States Navy successfully responded to a piracy attempt in the Gulf of Aden. The swift and disciplined actions of our sailors prevented loss of life and ensured the safety of international shipping lanes. It was more than just a rescue. It was a message, a reminder that no matter how far from home, American power could reach across oceans to protect its people and allies. As the Bainbridge's crew stood on deck, watching the calm horizon, they knew this was another silent victory, one that would never make the front pages, but would keep trade routes safe for millions who depend on them every day. The ocean was calm again. Waves lapped gently against the steel hull of the USS Bainbridge, and the morning sun shimmered across the open sea. For the sailors on board, the mission was over, but the memory would stay with them. What began as a desperate call for help had ended as a flawless demonstration of precision, training, and resolve. Moments like this remind us that the U.S. Navy's presence is not just about power, it's about protection. The sailors on watch that morning didn't know the people aboard the Liberty Dawn. They didn't know their names or their stories. But when that distress call came through, every man and woman in the chain reacted without hesitation. That's what service means: to act, to defend, and to be ready when others cannot. In the grand scale of military history, this incident may seem small. No major battle, no missiles fired, no explosions. Yet for the 20 sailors trapped inside that cargo ship, it meant everything. It showed them that even in one of the most lawless regions of the sea, they were not alone. For the pirates, it was a harsh lesson. Technology, surveillance, and coordination have changed the meaning of control at sea. The days of striking unseen are gone. Every radio call, every engine wake, every radar reflection tells a story. And somewhere above, someone is listening. The U.S. Navy's mission in these waters continues day and night. Destroyers, aircraft, and drones form a net of vigilance stretching across thousands of miles. They operate not for glory, but for stability, ensuring that trade moves, that nations stay connected, and that those who threaten peace know they are being watched. When the Bainbridge finally turned away from the scene, its engines steady and course set homeward, the crew looked out across the water, calm, endless, and free. They had done their duty. They had proven once again that American strength doesn't only lie in firepower, but in readiness, precision, and will. Because in the world's most dangerous waters, safety doesn't come by chance. It comes because somewhere out there a sailor stands the watch. If you believe in the courage of those who guard the seas, like this video, subscribe, and stay tuned for more true stories of U.S. Navy strength, sacrifice, and resolve.